Hi, everybody. This is Chelsea, your instructor for microbiology. And this quick video is just going to go over the different grade components that you are going to encounter in this course as you work through it. I do talk about this a little bit in the syllabus video, but I do recommend you listen to this one as well because I want to make sure it's just very clear what is going to be expected of you in terms of assignments this semester. So that way, if you have any questions, you can reach out to me. So there are two assignments that you are going to have to complete the first week of class, and they are not going to be contributing towards your grade, but they are still required. The first is the syllabus quiz, which is a 10-question quiz that is open note. You can take it as many times as you want. There's no time limit, but you do have to earn a 100% by Friday. That's August 26th. That is not true. I'm sorry, Friday, August 28th. So the syllabus is a contract between you and I. And so the syllabus quiz just touches on a lot of the main points, the big policies that I really want to make sure that you understand and agree to by being in this course. So that's why 100% is required on the syllabus quiz. Fail to complete it with 100% by Friday at 11:59 p.m. will result in you being withdrawn from the course and not re-enrolled. So please make sure you knock that out as soon as you can. The other required but non-graded component is the Respondus practice check. All submitted grade assignments are going to be used with the Respondus 2 camera setup. So that's going to be the Respondus lockdown browser plus the monitor portion, which is just your webcam, plus screen sharing, but it's all using the 2 camera setup. So one camera's like from your laptop, for instance, looking at you head on, and then you'll have another device that includes a camera off to the side that kind of gives like a profile slash face view, but also shows your testing environment, your hands, your computer screen, things like that. So this is probably new to you. Respondus just rolled it out earlier this year. And so I want to make sure you have plenty of opportunities to make sure that you are comfortable with this setup, um, and that you kind of know what to do. So that way, when your first graded assignment rolls around, you've had plenty of exposure. So part one is just going to be doing your best attempt at an environment scan, an acceptable testing environment space, using this 2 camera setup, and you'll answer like a gimme question. I'm enrolled in microbiology, right? The question itself is not the point, but it's just giving an opportunity to go through this process. You will submit that to me by August 27th. I will review the feedback, and then the final part is due August 30th. And so what will happen is you'll submit part one on August 27th. I'm going to go in, I'm going to watch your environment scan, I'm going to look at your testing environment, and I'm going to look at your 2 camera setup, and I'm going to give you feedback. I might say, hey, great job, this is perfect, do this again down the road. But odds are there's going to be something that needs to be tweaked. Maybe it's your environment scan. Maybe you moved the camera too quick. Maybe the room was too dark. Or perhaps the second camera in the 2 camera setup wasn't quite in a position that I want. So I'm going to give you feedback. You're going to go in, look at the feedback, and then do the assignment again, but incorporating that feedback. And so the goal is that by the time you're done on August 30th with this Respondus practice check, you will know exactly what to do um, for this process. Now, there's a lot that you have to do. You have to make sure your phone is charged, because if it dies during the exam, then the rest of your exam is not going to be scored. There's just all these little things. So it's spelled out in very great detail on the Start Here module. So please take the time, sit down, read it word for word, make sure you understand what that process is going to look like. All right. So again, those are 2 required but ungraded assignments. So let's get into where your grade's actually coming from. So there will be 5 lecture exams, one at the end of each unit, and these are not going to be curved, but y'all, these are only going to be available to be completed on the scheduled Saturday from 7 to 10 p.m. Okay, now finding an ideal time for every person was going to be impossible. So I tried to pick a day, Saturday, where you would have Friday night and all day Saturday to prepare. Then hopefully the evening time can be, after dinner, after bedtime if you have littles. I am sorry if it is not the ideal time for you, but this is when those exams are going to be scheduled. So if this doesn't work for you, I recommend that you try to find a section that has different exam rules. Okay. Now, don't get me wrong. I want you in this class, but there's going to be very few exceptions to anybody taking the exam at a time during this. I'm sorry. There'll be very, very few exceptions to this testing window. Okay. So the exam is 75 minutes. It usually takes people about an hour, give or take. So you do have some wiggle room on when you start the exam. Okay, again, they're all going to use the 2-camera setup. And these exams are cumulative. They cover all the topics covered in the unit, and you're going to see a variety of question types. Okay, now, one thing that I forgot to mention is that the exam must be submitted by 10 o'clock p.m. And how Respondus works is as soon as the clock strikes 10, it's considered due, and it will submit it for you. So you don't get that 10 o'clock minute, right? You don't get until 10:01. Okay. So I would think of it in your brain as the exam being due by 9:59 p.m. Okay. Because as soon as the clock strikes 10, it will submit it for you. So that means if you want the full 75 minutes, you need to start the exam by 8:44 p.m. Because what Respondus what Blackboard will do is it'll let you start the exam at 9:30 if you want to, and it's going to tell you that you have 75 minutes because that's how it's programmed. It's a 75-minute assessment. But when the clock strikes 10, it gets submitted. So it's a little misleading. All right. So if you choose to start the exam at 9:30, please know it is going to auto submit at 10 o'clock p.m. So if you want the full 75 minutes, you need to begin the actual exam no later than 8:44. But you will have to go through the environment scan, setting up the apparatus and all of that beforehand. Okay, so just keep that in mind. All right, so the exams are your, high stakes assignment. They have the most points of any lecture assignment. To help you prepare for the exams, you're going to have 2 knowledge checks per unit, one about midway through the unit and one at the end of the unit. And so the first knowledge check will just cover the modules in the first part of the unit. But the second knowledge check, think of it as more of a cumulative assignment, more of a cumulative review. Okay, these are low stakes. They're not worth a ton of points, but it's going to help you gauge what you're understanding, what you're comfortable with in a given unit, and then maybe what you need to review before the exam. Okay, so again, it's a graded submitted assignment, so you will need that 2-camera setup. Now, with knowledge checks, after the due date, okay, not when you submit, but the actual due date, as soon as the due date has passed, you can go into the gradebook and view the questions and question feedback for that assignment. So you'll be able to see the actual questions, whether you got the question right or wrong, and sometimes there'll be some like a helpful tip that will be you can use to help answer the question if you didn't get it correct. But you are not going to see all the answer choices. That's because I want you to actively go back and look for the answer. Okay. Now, if you're struggling and you're frustrated and you can't figure it out, reach out to me. Send me an email, message me on the Remind app. I'm happy to help. But you're more likely to remember something that you actually had to go find yourself rather than just memorizing something that I give to you. All right, but y'all, because the questions are released right after the due date, no late knowledge checks are going to be accepted. Okay, so please make sure that you are aware of all of the deadlines. And Blackboard does a great job of reminding you of upcoming deadlines if you ask it to. You can set up alerts. The other lecture-based assessment item is the journal club. This is more of a medium stakes assessment because it's worth more than the knowledge checks, but not quite as much as the exams. For each journal club, I will put you into a group of roughly 3 to 4 students. It's going to depend on how many students are enrolled at any given time. And y'all are going to coordinate a 30-minute time slot that works for all of you. And you are going to read an article that's related to the unit. This is where I'm really going to try to tie in some interesting real life connections to the content. So you'll set up a time for journal club. Before journal club, you will schedule the Zoom meeting and share the Zoom link. You'll read the article, and each person is going to post a discussion prompt. So then, when it's time for the journal club, everybody logs in and you spend the next 30 minutes, introducing yourself, but then talking through those prompts, working through what made sense, what didn't make sense, what kind of data was collected, what are some strengths and weaknesses of the article. It's going to vary depending on what type of scientific writing I provide to you. A peer-reviewed article is going to have different components than like a science magazine. But the point is you're going to be diving into the content. You are not expected to be an expert on these topics or even on the article, but you are expected to have some sort of meaningful conversation about it. Okay? So that meeting, that journal club is going to be recorded. You have to record. Okay? Once the meeting is over, Zoom will process your video, and then within 24 hours, you will need to upload that video so that I can watch it, and I will grade it, and there will be a rubric provided. I will make an entire video about this as we get closer. But then you will also, excuse me, you will also create an individual reflection based on the journal club itself. So, y'all, a lot of students in my classes before, a lot of them didn't like traditional discussion posts, and I don't blame them. I wasn't really a fan of them either in my day. But when they're not there or when they're not super frequent. And of course, a lot of students say, hey, I really want to engage with people, right? I don't want to sit alone at my computer all the time. And so Journal Club is going to hopefully be a fun way to connect with students, talk about content, maybe form like informal study groups and things. That would be cool. But it's really just meant to help support this community of learners that I'm trying to build. All right, so those are the 3 lecture-based assessments: knowledge checks, journal club, exams. For lab, you're also going to have 3 lab exams. They'll also be on a Saturday. And again, you'll have from 7 p.m. to 10 p.m. to complete them. Um, these are actually normally 60 minutes, so I'm going to need to go in and update this bullet. Lab exams are typically 60 minutes, so that'll give you a little bit more wiggle room on when you need to start the exam. You'll use that 2-camera setup. Questions are going to be in a variety of types, difficulty levels. One thing I want to reiterate is just like with lecture exams, um, you have to take them in that testing window. If there is an extenuating documented circumstance, please let me know. Okay. But otherwise, you need to make sure you're available on those Saturdays between 7 and 10. All right. The other thing I really want to stress for lab activities, and this is true for lecture too, but I tend to see it more in lab. Whenever you are on a lab quiz or a lab exam, um, you should only be referencing organisms and media and technique that we cover in that unit. Okay, so if you're answering questions about organisms that I've never taught you about, you're not going to get any points for that question. Okay, and you may end up getting um, a 0 for that assignment overall. Okay, because you really need to be talking about what we've covered in this course. All right, so those are the lab exams. Those are the more high stakes assignments for lab worth more points. To help you prepare for those, there will be lab quizzes throughout the semester. These are available Thursday through Sunday of that particular week. And I believe I made them all due on Sunday. So that means you can access them starting on Thursday. There's no specific like hour time range, just with any time within those days. Like everything, it has to be completed individually, without your notes, any assistance of any kind, just your brain. And that goes for all of the assignments in this class. So you will know in advance what lab activities are on any given quiz. You'll need to know like the theory behind that lab, how the organisms we're studying behave in that lab, things like that. Okay. And then we're going to have unknowns, one unknown for each lab unit. And essentially, what this will look like, it's going to be another Blackboard quiz format, but it'll say, in this unit, we studied Proteus vulgaris, outline the steps that you would need to take to identify this organism as your unknown. And in that unit, we would have talked about all of this. Okay. So there's no real surprises. It's just with unknowns, it's talking about how are we taking the things we learned and actually applying it? What do microbiologists actually do when they've found a new organism? How do we figure out what it is? And by new, I mean like they've just collected it in a sample. Okay. What tests are they going to do to say, that's E. coli, or, oh, that's Staphylococcus aureus? Okay. And so, again, as we get closer to this type of assignment, I will make more in depth videos where I really walk you through what's expected of you. Okay. I know right now a lot of this may seem a little overwhelming, but I promise I am going to be guiding you through this process every step of the way. All right, the last type of activity that you're going to have are virtual lab activities. When you go into a lab module, you will see activities that have a red square icon that say McGraw-Hill. That's because the virtual labs are made by McGraw-Hill. You will just click on those. It will give you the background activity. I'm sorry, my brain has officially gone cuckoo birds. It will give you the background information for the lab, and then you will literally click through the activity. Now, on the side of the page, it'll have all the steps. You have to make sure you do everything in the order they state, or else it's not going to let you move on. And so if you ever get stuck, please reach out to me. Send me a screenshot of where you're stuck, because just sometimes what they're asking isn't super intuitive. Okay, McGraw-Hill does a fabulous job. 98% of the time, I think things make sense. But there's going to be a time when you're like, OMG, I'm doing what you're asking, or the lab isn't doing what you tell me I'm supposed to do. And it can get frustrating. Okay, I've been there, I've had that happen. So if that happens, please don't waste a bunch of time being frustrated. Just shoot me an email, send me a picture on the Remind app, and I am happy to help you. So all virtual labs for a given unit are going to be due by noon, okay, on the specified date. Okay. And when you have the course calendar in your syllabus, you'll see where it is. So, like, for instance, you'll notice that the online labs and the unknown are due on the same day. But the labs are due by noon because you're meant to use those as a resource before you start having other lab higher stakes assessments. Okay. So these are completion based. So just click through it, answer the questions, do the best you can. Now, sometimes, y'all, these virtual labs are going to include organisms that I do not include in the lab notes or the lab PowerPoint. You do not need to understand how those bacteria work unless they are also in the lab notes and lab PowerPoints. Okay. And I'm going to mention this again once you've gotten started, so it kind of makes sense. But just know that all of your lab assessments are only going to focus on the organisms presented in the lab notes and the lab PowerPoint. Okay. The goal of these online lab activities is just to help you actually do the techniques and labs, since we won't be meeting in person. All right, y'all. I know this was a lot of information. Please let me know if you have any questions. I hope you have a fabulous day. Bye, y'all.